There's a category of postcards from the early 1900s that nobody talks about, fella. Thousands of them. Printed in France, Germany, Holland, America. Babies sitting in giant cabbages. Babies with price tags. Babies with individual descriptions like product listings. One reads, Modern Baby Bazaar. Free entry. No refunds accepted. These weren't novelty items. They went through the Postal Service, openly, during the same decade that 200,000 children were being moved across America by train and selected by waiting families at rural stops. The postcard wasn't a greeting card. It was a catalog.
Thousands of postcards, multiple countries, multiple languages, all showing the same thing. Infants in commercial context with pricing information. The Postal Service delivered them. Nobody stopped because at the time, nobody found them unusual enough to stop.
Peter, those postcards are a documented folk art genre. The Cabbage Patch imagery is a Victorian euphemism for where babies come from. It's not sinister, it's just old.
Then explain why the post office had to pass a specific law in 1915 banning parents from mailing their children. Brian, not because someone proposed it theoretically, because parents were doing it. Documented cases, newspaper reports, and children sent through the U.S. mail system like packages. During the same years, these postcards were circulating. The Postal Service banned mailing children. Nobody banned the postcards.
The documented cases of children sent through the U.S. Postal Service occurred between 1913 and 1915. Several cases were reported in newspapers of the period. The regulation banning the practice was issued specifically because existing postal law had no prohibition. Children technically qualified under existing categories. The postcards depicting infants with price tags and individual descriptions have been cataloged by historians as a distinct genre. The volume, thousands of known examples across multiple languages, and the functional language used on many of them suggest commercial rather than novelty purpose.
The post office had to write a law saying you cannot mail children because people were mailing children through the same postal system delivering catalogs of babies in cabbage patches. The law came after the behavior, which means the behavior was normal enough that nobody legislated against it until it became impossible to ignore.
Okay, bro, the mailing law is real, the postcards are real, but 200,000 children on trains, that's the Orphan train movement. That's a documented welfare program. That's not the same thing, my dude.
Go read the contemporary accounts of the train stops. Cleveland, the children presented to waiting families, selected or passed over. Those not chosen, returned to the train. The language used by historians describing those stops is almost identical to the language on the postcards. And in 1896, the first narrative film ever made, La Fée aux Choux, The Cabbage Fairy. A woman pulls babies from a cabbage patch and hands them to customers. Not a metaphor, and a transaction. The first story humanity chose to put on film was about acquiring children from a vegetable field.
The orphan train movement at peak scale between 1870 and 1910 coincides precisely with the peak distribution of the cabbage baby postcard genre. Charles Loring Brace, who founded the Children's Aid Society that operated the trains, described the selection process in his own writing and language that contemporary researchers have noted mirrors the commercial postcard imagery of the period. The Foundling Hospital in New York processed thousands of children annually. The infrastructure, trains, hospitals, postcards, the 1896 film, all appeared in the same 30-year window. Infrastructure precedes demand. Someone built this before the need was obvious.
Trains moving 200,000 children, postcards showing babies for sale. The first film ever made about purchasing children from a cabbage field, all in the same 30-year window. Bro, that's not coincidence.
And here's the layer underneath all of it, fella. Look at photographs of major American and European cities from the 1860s and 1870s. Grand architecture, wide boulevards built for hundreds of thousands of people. Almost nobody in them. One or two figures on streets that should be packed. Chimneys everywhere. No smoke. Cities built for a civilization that isn't there yet. This was a reset, a depopulation event followed by deliberate repopulation. The orphan trains, the foundling hospitals, the World's Fairs with their incubator exhibits showing premature babies to paying audiences, the postcards advertising available children. These weren't separate social phenomena. They were the logistics of rebuilding a population. The Cabbage Patch wasn't folklore. It was operational language.
The photographic record of Western cities between 1860 and 1880 shows consistent architectural scale design for dense populations with almost no inhabitants visible. The orphan train movement began at precisely this period. The Foundling Hospital network expanded at precisely this period. The cabbage baby postcard genre appeared at precisely this period. Someone planned the distribution infrastructure before the population existed to fill it.
Empty cities, grand architecture, no people. Then suddenly, orphan trains, foundling hospitals, postcards with price tags. The first film about purchasing children from a field. The repopulation infrastructure appeared before the population arrived. The Cabbage Patch was the distribution network. The postcard was the catalog. The train was the delivery system.
I came into this ready to dismiss every claim. The mailing regulation is documented. The postcards exist. La Fée aux Choux is in the film record. The orphan train selection process is in the historical archive. The empty city photographs are real. I don't know what it adds up to, but I know it adds up to something.
And then in 1983, someone packaged all of it, fella. Xavier Roberts takes the Cabbage Patch, the imagery from the postcards, from the 1896 film, from the folk tradition of acquiring children from a field, and puts it in a box. Calls it a toy. Every doll arrives without parents. Requires adoption paperwork. It has a unique name and a birthday. 65 million sold. The children who played with those dolls practiced the paperwork. Signed the certificates. Named the orphan. Called it play.
The Cabbage Patch was where children came from. The postcard was the catalog. The train was the delivery. The film was the instruction. And then they gave your daughter a doll from a Cabbage Patch with adoption papers to practice with. 65 million times. The memory was always there. They just called it the best-selling toy in history. And nobody asked why it needed a birth certificate.